I just got back from the dentist. Can you tell? Ah. So, what's really fascinating about this experience, getting up early, driving to the dentist, going through that procedure, lots of Novocaine, is part of my real-time advocate series that says I just want to I want to express what's happened from the morning till right now, which is about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And the fascinating thing right now is that my mind, whatever in there, my mind considers that no matter, even if I look at my jaw and see that it's perfectly normal, there's no swelling, it's perfectly normal, my mind considers my jaw to be this big on this side of my face, the size of a cantaloupe. It's not understanding that there's nothing wrong, that it's, my jaw is perfectly normal, it's perfectly flat. But because of the Novocaine and because of the sensation, the experience of the sensation, the experience of the chemicals, my mind can't do it. It can't see reality right now. It only feels, its experience is that my jaw is ginormous right now, but it's not. So isn't that fascinating? Isn't that fascinating that what is the truth? The truth is I'm numb, but it's not swollen. But my mind is like, oh my gosh, you poor thing. The entire side of your face is swollen. But that's not true. Isn't that fascinating? What is the truth? Trying to explain to you, this feeling, these thoughts that I keep having about how crazy this is, how crazy it is that I'm recording these videos. It's like, the thoughts show up and they go, what do you know? What do you know about anything? You're always talking that you don't know anything, and now all of a sudden you know everything. And so when those thoughts show up, it's fun to see them for what they are. They're just blips of energy passing through. They show up and they move on. Oh, this is crazy. Recording these videos is crazy. And then there's almost like the dude of wisdom. And I don't even know if it's a dude. It's just an entity of wisdom shows up and says,
what's crazy?
Is it crazy to have gone through 34 years of major depression? Or is it crazy not to record these videos because you're not experiencing depression, thanks to an understanding? So is it crazier to not record these videos, or is it crazy to stay in a system that keeps the story or keeps the entity of depression alive? So if you're going to a psychiatrist and you're talking to that psychiatrist, you're talking to that psychiatrist about problems, about issues, about depression, about anxiety. Well, that person is trained. He or she is trained in those fields, but those fields exist because we see ourselves having problems. Isn't that fascinating? What is the truth? Where does crazy begin and where does crazy end? Well, that's just a thought in itself also. But it's nice to hear wisdom that shows up, that it feels, well, it's arriving through me, but it's not like it's me exactly. Does that make sense? As I drove down to the dentist office, I kept hearing that story of, you have to make videos because it would be crazy not to make videos at this point. where you are now, free of anxiety and depression, free of anxiety and depression as an illness. I think that's important to see. There's always going to be anxiety if we look at what anxiety represents. But it's part of a beautiful flow of life versus it being something that you pull out by itself and say, I have anxiety, therefore I'm broken. No, that's not the truth. That's not the truth at all. That's part of this thing up here, wanting something outside of this beautiful flow that's constantly moving, constantly creating space and just being a part of our lives. Every single one of us. This flow where thoughts show up and then they dissipate and they move on. That happens every single day. It happens anywhere from 160,000 times to 360,000 times a day. And I don't know if those numbers are accurate. It's just a fun little thing to think about. It's fun to think about where we can focus on one thing when the reality is there's hundreds of thousands of things or experiences or thoughts that flow through us every single day. While I was there at the dentist, there was an assistant, and she had this really positive attitude. But it was not just a positive attitude. It was more like you could tell that she was really, really relaxed and playful and very helpful. And so I asked her when the dentist got up and had to go get some supplies, I asked her, I said, let me ask you, you seem, and this is just my feeling in the moment, that you have an understanding about how life works, and you seem very lighthearted and kind. And is that something that you forcefully do, that you come in here and you say, I'm going to have a good attitude? Or is it something that you feel naturally flows through you? And she said, I've always wanted to serve others. I just didn't know what area that would be. And it actually ended up being a dental assistant, and I've been one for 32 years. She said, I love what I do. And it's not about what I do. It's just about being here, able to serve others. And she said, I believe it's a flow. It's not about whether I come in to the day forcing the attitude. It's just a part of a natural flow. And I was like, wow. Was I so glad that I asked that question. And then I went back into the thing.
Yeah, you know. Yeah.
And then driving back home, I had more thoughts. Again, I'm driving, I'm distracted in a way. I'm not distracted from driving, I'm concentrating. Maybe that's it. I'm concentrating on driving. And maybe the concentration itself opens space. I don't know for a fact. I'm just saying that it happens frequently when I'm driving, where there's a space that opens up and thoughts arrive that are compelling. They're exciting, they're new, they're just different. They seem to come from a different place than the typical, usual place, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
What's crazy?
Does that make sense? So the thoughts that showed up were along the lines of what an insight is. How do I explain to you what an insight is? We hear the words all the time, insight. Oh, I had a great insight today. Or an insight showed up. or insights arrive during so and so, or you'll have insights too. And so I really found that there was, again, I feel like it's a story that's being shared to me. Instead of me being the orchestrate, the orchestra, who's that dude that does the thingy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of me being the one that's telling the story to myself, the story shows up and it reveals itself to me. That's it. The story shows up in that space and it reveals itself to me. And that revealing is fun to experience because it's not something that you did or that you created. It just shows up. And it talked about an insight. How do you explain an insight? And without the beautiful thing about these stories that arrive and that you recognize them, they're very clear. It's not like telling a story and then having to think about, is this the best way to go about the story? Maybe I should do the story here.
And then move over here, and then or take this part of the story and move it over here, and take this part of the story and move it over here, and then take this part over here.
It has a natural flow to it. Again, it's as if it's being revealed to you, that it's already been well established of what an insight is. It talked about an insight being an awareness of the, it's hard to explain. An insight is an awareness that goes beyond whatever story we have already stated is who we are. This is who we are. I'm Dave Fry. I'm 57 years old. I'm this, and this. And nothing's going to change that because I've always been this, and this. An insight shows up and it very lightly yet profoundly says, hey, guess what? You know that thing about you always being this way? What if that's wrong? Not wrong as in right or wrong, but what if that's not the truth? What if there's play in there? What if there's a lot of play in there? What if instead of being this one particular thing that you think that you are, what if there's a lot of play in there? And perhaps you're not that at all. So these insights are an awareness. They're an awareness to something that's new to you, although you felt like you were a certain way before that wasn't going to change. So I hope that makes sense.
Where does crazy begin and where does crazy end? Well,
there's I'm going to say it's kind of like a hot day. There's a hot day and you're with some friends and you're at a creek somewhere. And when you first get in the creek, the water is cold. And it's kind of shocking at first, but then as it flows over you, there's a leveling off, and then it becomes refreshing. And people are asking, is it cold? Is it cold? And you're like, well, it was at first, but now it's perfect. That's kind of like the feeling that I experience when I have an insight. I'm not able to say exactly what it is. And that's how this understanding works. I can't tell you exactly how it is, but I use my limited words and I do the best that I can to try to express a feeling. And so we'll continue on tomorrow with more swollen jaw, and real-time advocate for you and this understanding, because you are this understanding. You just might not see it yet, but it's you. It's you.